it's that time. It's Christmas time. It's December 1st. And we're here with robot and nonsense stories to end the week and start your December.
The almost weekly story that we open with has to do with Google and their AI.
Well,
What would be their AI if they would ever release it?
it's always a new AI model, right? But this week it's the opposite of that.
Google delays release of Gemini AI that aims to compete with OpenAI. Gemini, it conjures a name of, we know so much about you. We've used everything we know about you to train an AI. That's you. It's your twin. It's your AI twin. It's your assistant. It's going to do all this
Stop writing
stuff
their
for
marketing copy for them.
They guaranteed this. Well, they didn't guarantee it, but they claimed that it would be ready by November. But November's over. Nobody's got a Bard
you. It's gone.
or a Gemini. I'm sorry.
Maybe
They do have
we
Bard.
will by the time the story releases, and then we'll have egg on our face.
Yeah, we do have Bard, and Bard now has a new superpower.
Bard can now watch YouTube videos for you. And if the article is to be believed, it was able to watch an hour-long video in 5 minutes.
Oh, so it'll be able to summarize our episodes.
The use case that the author here used was a recipe
Yeah.
that was on
It was
America's
a
Test
chocolate
Kitchen.
martini. I was like, that sounds good.
So the YouTube video purposely does not give you the actual print recipe. You have to go to the website, which is paywalled. So she used the AI to sum up the recipe and give her a printed list, and it got it right.
But just probably just using the transcript, I would think. But
It was amazing. Also, the AI, where you take a picture of the inside of your fridge and ask it what you can make with the stuff that's in your fridge, is getting shockingly good.
there were tools for that even before AI. I used to use that sometimes.
I mean, even just ChatGPT is like, here's a picture of the stuff in my fridge. What can we make? And it's like, you got any of this? Yep. It's like, all right, that's what we're doing.
Well, there might be a lot of novel ways to use language models, but the most obvious way to use them is now being banned in certain places.
Telegraph journalists told that the use of ChatGPT will result in the same sanctions as plagiarism. Staff were warned against entering sensitive or proprietary data into ChatGPT. What about GPT for all, where you can run it locally on your computer and it never hits the internet?
That's never going to happen because they want to monetize it. Worst reality. Always think of the worst reality.
Well, that's a great lead into this one because we've talked about this over and over of the more AI gets powerful, the more that they can take all that data that they know about us and mine it and use it against us, the worse that this industry is going to get, which is already, we thought, as bad as it could get. But no, there's so much room left.
UnitedHealth uses AI model with a 90% error rate to deny care, lawsuit alleges. And it turns out that this is probably by design. The AI is like, oh, no, you don't need this. It is denying healthcare for elderly patients, and a lot of the time they die.
Literally anybody who's probably just sick. It's like, no, we don't want to pay on that.
So this is rehab for like after surgery care or something like that. The robot is actually deciding how much rehab you need. But some of the insiders pointed out that it doesn't consider things like comorbidities. So if you just had heart surgery, and you might also have like diabetes or something, which is going to make that a lot more complicated, the robot doesn't even look at that. They're just like, no, you got heart surgery, you get X number of weeks of rehab.
United Healthcare callously treating patients is, no, this doesn't sound like a thing at all.
It seems like that would be something your doctor would be the one who would determine, not
Nope.
a random computer.
No,
But
it's just a robot.
Yeah, can we just, that should be a death penalty for United Healthcare.
just kill everybody at the top there.
Government regulator should step in and be like, oh, you have failed your mission. This is not effective. See ya.
And we all know about the hallucinations that plague our AI companions, but perhaps we need to start talking about different words or degrees of hallucination, because sometimes it doesn't just hallucinate, but it recreates other realities to match its hallucination, and you'll never know when it's actually doing that.
ChatGPT generates fake data set to support scientific hypothesis. Yeah, that's because they're learning to make AI models that don't do this, but sometimes you do need an AI model that has an imagination. Sometimes you don't. So we're entering this phase where there's a model that looks at the kind of question you're asking, and if it's a fact-based one, it's, perhaps I should only give you information that I can cite a source for. And so that uses a different model than ChatGPT.
And maybe you're illiterate. Maybe you got some vision problems. Maybe there's something that's keeping you from joining the AI revolution. But no more.
ChatGPT's voice feature is rolling out to free users. This definitely doesn't have anything to do with the AI pen, but you can have a more, well, at least until it went down, you could have a more fluid conversation with ChatGPT than you could with the AI pen, which has like a 3 or 4 second delay sometimes.
I think it's just stealing your voice. So
I
it can
think
train.
it's already got all the voices it needs.
Yeah.
And the old robots, the previous generation of robots, have proven to be completely unsuccessful, and it's time for them all to die.
Internal memo, Amazon will cut several hundred Alexa jobs as it ends unspecified initiatives.
Why would anybody want Alexa?
Just when you have ChatGPT, yeah.
And now it can talk to you.
Just give ChatGPT control of all your smart speakers, but then Amazon's not in charge, and they're just like, they don't want to enable that future. See, if Amazon had our best interests at heart, it would be, here is the API, which you can have whatever AI you're running, talk to your smart speakers and your Ring doorbell and anything like that, and now it can be managed by whatever software you want. But they don't have their hand out. They can't be a middleman. They can't,
But they could still be a middleman if they made a deal with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's probably where they're going.
Well, no, I think they want more control of that. So I don't think you'll ever see that because they'll never, it's like, we need to own it. It's ours. And so again, we are just, we lose the autonomy and agency, and therefore we must never partake.
Well, one thing about artificial intelligence, and especially if we start to actually get UFO stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit later,
You're welcome.
That it's going to cause a big problem for some of our most powerful institutions because somehow all the prophets and all the religious leaders never saw that coming, despite their omniscience. So what do? Well, you create a new kind of worship.
Anthony Levandowski reboots the Church of Artificial Intelligence.
Closed down in 2015, and then he's like, nope, we're bringing it back. We're getting the band back together.
I'm waiting for the Church of Trek.
I'm sure that already exists, right? I saw a good Star Trek meme the other day, and I meant to send it to you. I'll have to look for it later.
And Tesla is once again under fire from regulators. In their existence, they've never not been under fire from regulators, and maybe it was deserved because those cars don't drive themselves.
The Guardian headline got it's a judge finds a quote-unquote reasonable evidence that Tesla knew its self-driving tech was defective. In this context, what does defective mean? It means that the self-driving technology is not fully self-driving. That's what
self-driving.
That's what the judge got hung up on. Is like, this doesn't sound like what I would think of when you say the words full self-driving.
But it's worse than that because not only is it not full self-driving, but it was sold as full self-driving, and someone treated it like that and had their head ripped off by a semi-trailer. So his family is suing, and the judge seems to be kind of with them on the whole self-driving thing. Like, yeah, you kind of did sell him that, and then it killed him. So we'll see how that goes. We also have more robots who are here to control us and police us.
There's a new sheriff in Times Square, and it's an NYPD robot.
There's a great picture in this article. You should scroll down where it's like a mom and her kid, and they're both looking at it really confused. Like, what the hell is that?
Pretty sure I saw this robot in Futurama.
Please, citizen.
They also point out that it's very popular with drunk people on the train taking selfies with it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Now, this robot will not actually arrest you. He in fact, doesn't have any arms or limbs with which to do that. But he will add an extra
Shove
camera.
you onto the track.
Yeah. He will kill you in cold blood.
He's got a live camera, which is always feeding back to the cops. And he has a button on his head, which you can press and immediately talk to the cops.
They should put another button right next to that one to immediately receive an electric shock.
You just call to talk to the cops. Hey, how are you guys doing? What's up? I'm hanging out with the robot in the subway. What are you doing?
And robots are also being used to replace workers. Remember when they told us that that was never going to happen? Well, it's happening. And here's a man who employed a lot of fast food workers and figured out a way not to employ very many.
NYC will soon be home to 15 robot-run vegetarian restaurants from Chipotle's founder.
A lot of people pointed out, they're like, hey, aren't you the guy that ran the restaurant that constantly poisoned people? He was like, yeah, but the robots won't do that. So it's actually better.
Fun times.
We'll see.
And Nvidia has a bit of a smoking gun. In their latest lawsuit, here is a cautionary tale about sharing your screen on Teams.
Ugh.
Robocar tech biz sues Nvidia, claims stolen code shared in Teams meeting blunder. So there's a guy that worked for the Robotech car thing, and Nvidia said, "You're really smart. You should come to work for us." So he did. Then a couple of months later, Nvidia and the Robocar company are meeting, and that guy shares his screen. And on his screen is all the stuff that he's not supposed to have anymore, including all the source code for the Robocar tech company.
Well, it's such a level of confidence that I wish I had. Like, yeah, I'm going to
Well-
keep this up and they're not going to see it.
But he didn't do that on purpose. He had it in the background, which, like, why would you even have
Why
it
would you
open?
even have, yeah.
But he was on a PowerPoint, and when he was done with his PowerPoint, he was like, yeah, I'm done with the PowerPoint. Minimize, and boom.
But
And
that's what I don't understand is it's like I close everything before a call if I think I'm even going to maybe have the tiniest chance of having to share my screen.
he probably wanted to refresh, like, because this was a sales pitch.
Right.
Both of the companies were there, but they were actually pitching to a third party. So he was probably like, I need to refresh myself on the stolen code.
just close it. Close it out when you're done.
This is a pain in the ass to go and open everything back up. And
Yeah, but you just, I don't want them to know what I'm listening to on Spotify. Well,
As a result of this, I've seen other companies come out of the woodwork, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's how Nvidia does business. And it's like, oh, care to elaborate? I'm going to need some details on that.
that was a big failure, but maybe not as big as a failure as Cruise has had this month. They've had to shut everything down, and someone must suffer for that.
Cruise co-founder and CEO Kyle Vogt resigns. Voigt?
another one bites the dust. A lot of CEOs disappearing right now.
Well, Cruise shut down after they had that incident with the pedestrian, and it was like, will this happen again? And it's like, oh yeah, it could. Oh,
I saw, I looked that up because that story's a couple days old, and as of today when we're filming, they still haven't found another CEO.
Who would want that?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, that'll get the Twitch guy. Just keep recycling him.
Maybe it's me.
Well, moving on to the space section, we have an exciting new piece of technology that is a long way from home, but still able to tell us about the adventure.
NASA's Psyche spacecraft just fired a laser 10 million miles away in deep space. Fast communications. So this is going to be a little faster than radio waves.
Doesn't this point the aliens right back to us?
Well,
Come on.
There's some alien kid looking out its window in its little spaceship room, and it gets blasted in the eye, and it's blind.
arguably the laser communication is probably better than radio if we don't want to be spotted by galactic neighbors.
Well, some sad news, and we just missed this last time because was this on Saturday or maybe it was the end of the day Friday? We did talk about this, and we were hopeful, but unfortunately,
SpaceX rocket ship lost in second test flight. Everybody, all the headlines from this are super, super negative, but actually I think the test flight concluded at the point at which it was supposed to conclude.
oh, but they didn't want to blow it up.
Yeah.
They did make it in space, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were hoping to bring it back, but something happened, and they didn't want to lose control of it, or like get space debris or whatever. So they.
But basically everything did actually work correctly.
Do you think there's someone who worked on that project saying that exact thing? It basically worked the way we expected.
When you blew it up on purpose,
Yeah.
you can't come back to me, the programmer, and tell me I did something wrong. You pressed the button.
Well, I mean, dramatically, in terms of like versus the first launch, it is dramatically improved.
And it seems like every month they're going to give us a new little tidbit this year, right? Like, how long is this going to go on? Nothing concrete, but they just keep inching more and more toward this reality.
The Daily Mail, yeah. the
Yeah,
Daily Mail.
and it's an exclusive. This guy only talked to the Daily Mail.
Retired U.S. Army Colonel says the secret UFO project should be made public by around October 2030 to beat America's rivals to get ahead of a quote-unquote catastrophic leak.
Now, he's not saying should as in terms of he thinks that's going to happen. This is just his recommendation. Because
2030 is a long way off.
he's afraid if, like, China were to reveal it first, then we would lose some kind of initiative. This was at a UFO conference, and he was kind of like the big dude. Now, he does run the Saul Foundation now, which is all about this kind of thing. So he has a reason to.
Say these things to get
to hype
funding for the Saul Foundation.
This is all about reverse engineering captured technology, apparently.
But he does presumably, I mean, I've not checked his credentials, but according to the Daily Mail, he has been exposed to this kind of thing. He's been in these programs before, so he would know. if it actually happened. And it is tough to believe that we're the only life in the universe and that nobody has checked us out yet.
Turns out we're just reverse engineering a space probe. It's like, oh yeah, that's just a space probe. Oh,
Yeah, but it's a space probe that's probably better than anything we've got, right?
Hey, speaking of space probes, it took everyone a second to read it.
deep space astronauts may be prone to erectile dysfunction, study finds, according to The Guardian.
We still don't really understand how menstruation works in space, but everybody stop the presses.
But this doesn't just happen in space.
Yeah, it's like, didn't it say years later?
Decades.
Decades, yeah.
And they were like, oh, don't worry, because we could probably implant something or do something crazy to you and get it back. And I was like, no, I don't know if I want to take that risk. Has something to do with tissue in that area getting bombarded by all that radiation and stuff. It's
That's a
tough.
bummer. That's something I didn't want to know about Buzz Aldrin, but
Imagine
now I know.
you're a space wife and you've been waiting for like a year to 6 months. And it's like, he just got out of prison. He comes home and he's like, oh, I got some bad news.
Bad news, sweetheart.
Does that sound at all like some sort of like intergalactic sterilization program? It's like, okay, if you ever do develop the ability to travel to other planets, you are not viable anymore.
They have wrecked that planet to the point that we must prevent them. Like, they're fine if they're there, whatever. But
They can trash their planet.
yeah, the second they get off of there, hit them with the erectile dysfunction rate.
They're like cockroaches. They'll be everywhere if not.
Like the mosquito.
Yeah.
Rather than kill us, they just make it impossible for us to breed.
Yeah.
Little do they know that we can do in vitro. I didn't understand this at all. Like, I read the entire article. It's apparently due to violence, but I don't understand the cause and
I don't-
effect here.
yeah,
It makes no sense.
The headline is Catholic health system to replace all crucifixes, because apparently people are freaking out about that.
I
and
assume
or-
people use it maybe as a bludgeoning item.
Oh, that's dark.
Well,
I don't. Nothing makes sense here. Somebody explain it to us,
Couldn't you just make them out of a material that would crumble easily?
You would think, yeah.
or just paint them on.
Yeah, just paint it on the wall, but
But it does point out that violence in hospitals is really picking up.
yeah.
But that's just because as a society, we're decaying into feral people. I don't know what's exactly causing it, but it's happening
I feel
everywhere.
like it's different brands of feral for different people. Like, I would never consider hitting a nurse with a crucifix in a hospital, but maybe some people would.
Yeah, imagine attacking a person who might be around you while you're unconscious later.
Yeah, they're literally caring for you while you're sick.
And one of the, I think when anthropologists look back at our time, they'll be looking a lot at this man because somehow he became one of our most powerful leaders. And yet,
Botox, Ferragamo. Is that how you
I
say
don't know
that?
what
I'd
that
say
is.
Ferragamo, but I don't know what it is.
Ferragamo and OnlyFans. How George Santos allegedly spent his campaign funds.
It's got to be a fashion, right?
According to the article, it's some sort of like high-end store, like a department store, but
Oh,
like Balenciaga or whatever.
I've never heard of that.
So yeah, he was basically just taking campaign funds and spending them on whatever he felt like spending them on and not doing a good job of hiding it.
Isn't that what happens in most campaigns?
Yeah, but they're better at it.
They at least pretend.
He said cynically. It's not supposed to happen.
And as I was saying, yeah, society, it's breaking down. Mental health has become such a problem and we refuse to pay attention to it.
The headline is I have a mission I have to complete. Man accused of trying to break into residential homes, doing bad things on porches, tells the judge that he must continue. This is obviously someone who has mental health issues, and he's not done it enough to be jailed yet.
I feel like once would be enough to maybe,
That's the mental health issue. Once we've determined that they are beyond help with mental health, we don't do anything with them. We just put them back out. But this guy's got a $500,000 bond. Probably a lot of this has to do with the fact that he kept interrupting the judge and telling him that, no, I need to finish this by December. And by this, I mean going door to door and pleasing himself. I would like to hear more about why. If I were the judge, I would have followed that.
And all the lawyers and like everybody in the courtroom's like, do we really need to know why? And it's like, no, I need to know.
Now we got another horrible story that's pretty much the same thing, but the real juicy part here was the name of this story.
The Iowa City man accused of the same sort of thing at a local convenience store.
I can't read that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that.
but it's spelled with a K, Krista.
I can't read it. It's so small.
Well, like imagine that I was going to arrive and leave.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
The McIntyre Avenue.
We should all know less about each other.
Yes.
Well, abandoning or exploring abandoned buildings is a big YouTube thing.
Yeah, I actually
People-
love the dead malls.
Those are interesting videos for sure. These guys went a little too far with it.
Workhouse trespassers call 911 for help after locking themselves in a cell. This is a county jail that had been abandoned for a year. And they said, wow, there's a jail cell here. And they locked themselves in.
Wow.
Oops.
So the cops came, opened up the door, and immediately placed them under arrest. And once again, we look at the darkness of our healthcare system. Now, these people didn't even have to worry about an insurance provider turning them down because there was nothing to turn down. There was nobody to help them.
The doctor didn't show up, but the hospital ER still billed them $1,012.
That's just for intake. You
So-
you took hospital resources.
There were tourists here from India visiting, and their son grabbed a stove, burned his hand, and they were like, what do we do? And so their pediatrician said, you probably should go to the local ER just because it doesn't look great. So they did, but then the doctor didn't see them because there was other stuff going on.
No, he never showed up. He wasn't at the hospital, but he got called in, but he never showed up. So after a couple hours, they were like, what? We're just leaving. Still cost him $1,000.
It's wild that for what I assume is probably not a terrible burn wound, like they didn't just have a nurse patch it up.
No, they didn't do anything. Well, they took the blood pressure and did all the like little
The
stuff.
yeah.
And that was the $1,000.
It's nuts to me.
This
There's a ghost.
are we being invaded? This should be more insane to you.
It is insane to me that it's not already a thing, but it's also not surprising.
But the fact that this is a thing and it could happen to you and you never know about it.
No.
You don't know, all of you out there in the American healthcare system, you can't be sure whose fingers have been inside of you. Think about that.
Ban on pelvic and rectal exams on unconscious, unknowing patients has passed in Pennsylvania. If you're not in Pennsylvania, this could happen.
Well, they said there were 12 states which have legislated against this. That's a lot left.
Yeah, there's 50 states. There's still a lot more that could be doing that.
So you're probably scratching your head, right? Like, what are you talking about? Well, there's a part of the education program for medical students where they want you to do live pelvic and rectal exams. So how do you do that? Well, first you do dolls and then you do cadavers. And then randomly, some people who are going under anesthesia while they're out, you get to practice on them.
I've had like a nurse come in and be like, this person's training. Like, do you care if they're in the room?
That's all they have to tell you.
Yeah. I don't care if they're there.
But they don't tell you the other part.
Well, yeah, I wasn't out in my particular case, but
That's just staggering.
as long as they ask, whatever.
I didn't think that I could trust the healthcare industry any less. Here we are.
And yet here we are. Yeah.
You should read some horror stories about women's experiences with pelvic exams. It's not,
Yeah, I mean, I can get that, right?
yeah, it's not fun.
Because at the end of the day, men are men. And it's going to be weird. I like the whole, like, separates the genders there, right?
Yeah, so I've always had a woman doctor for
Right,
that.
yeah.
I've always you can request that. Also, you can tell them like, I want a nurse in the room. I want this.
But how much longer is that going to be true? Because now that's like horrible, discrimination.
That's probably always going to be true. You could at least have someone in the room, another person.
Oh, there'll be a lot of people in the room. There'll be a line. It's just a bunch of people with one glove. And Toronto, everything about Canada is spiraling just like it is here in America. But their real estate market is really, really something that's out of hand.
A Toronto realtor says the rental market is unhinged after someone lists the other half of a bed. And I thought that would be the end of the story, but no. It goes on to say that this isn't the first time that they've listed half of a bed, and that it basically worked out fine the first time.
I follow one of the interior design subreddits, and someone literally posted, it was like an image of a closet with a bed in it. And they're like, how do I make this feel more homey? And it's just, it's in like a college town in the US, not even a big city.
The answer is Christmas lights.
Yeah, always. And they were like, do you not have a window or anything? He's like, no, I'm just renting out this closet in a house with like 10 other students.
Also, the security deposit on that half a bed, over 1,000 Canadian.
I found out recently one of my younger cousins was living in an RV, basically like a trailer, and he's paying $800 a month.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
But that's also your dream, right? Van life. You give him some tips.
No, I wouldn't pay $800 a month to do it. He could be living out of the national park. for cheaper than
Does
that.
he own the RV?
No, he doesn't live there
it's-
anymore. He just moved back in with his dad. But
Well,
Yeah,
that is
'cause that was unsustainable.
yeah, because that's outrageous.
one of the problems you're going to have in an RV: heat. But if you're in the Netherlands, who just got a new, did you guys see that election? Another far right libertarian. I love that. Like anytime a libertarian wins an election, it's like, oh no, they're far right. But the Dutch have a new idea on how to heat their homes.
The treasure beneath our feet, quote unquote, how the Dutch went looking down the toilet for heat. And they found it.
They found it. They're using sewage and probably going to try to repipe it.
Turns out all that bacterial stuff going on down there generates a lot of heat. So somehow we're going to try to get that back into our homes.
And convert the methane, the methane that is bled off into the atmosphere usually, recapture that.
It's an interesting idea. The one thing I wondered, if they repipe it so it's closer to the surface, does that make it hotter during the summer as well? Do you then have to worry about cooling?
I think they're bringing it back up, right?
Yeah,
After it's had time. So you can just turn it off during the summer
I guess so.
because you don't need to heat anything.
An interesting thought.
It is interesting. They said they were inspired by the fact they were driving down the road and there was snow on everything except for the manhole covers. And they're like, oh,
Yeah, it probably is warm down there.
poop heat. Well, if you are a traveler, a lot of people traveling, again, not this weekend because for us it's a week before, but where we are right now in time, a lot of people are in the air and they're being fed some questionable things.
Passenger offered, quote unquote, imported dog food on a China Eastern Airlines flight. Turns out that was a mistranslation. It was supposed to be something about an imported hot dog.
Oh. Wonder if that's AI translated.
Probably.
It's technically the word dog.
The article suggests that was AI translation gone wrong, but who really knows?
Yeah.
One topic we cover a lot here is the conflict of interest for government employees. And for example, should Nancy Pelosi be a 100 millionaire because her husband is a broker who might have, I don't know, inside information from his wife, who's one of the most powerful people in the country? The government says no, that's fine. And they also say that this is fine. It's a different government.
Health Secretary Victoria Atkins says husband's sugar job is no conflict. I say that's BS. Sugar is surprisingly addictive, especially refined sugar. It is actually like crack. I can confirm.
And also bad for you. Maybe worse than crack for your well-being. But she says, nah, it's not a big deal because she's a strong woman and she doesn't get influenced.
Any kind of food that
Yes, because that's how
alters
humans work.
your taste of stuff is because like carrots and apples are insanely sweet to me now compared to what they were.
What about carrots? I heard that carrots were like considered a sweet food until we started ruining our
Yeah,
palates.
it's one
with
of the
sugar.
highest sugars.
It definitely they taste way less bland now, and also cherry tomatoes are way less bland.
But the thing that she's ignoring here is she's like, no, my husband won't be able to influence me, even though he might want that thing. But she's ignoring the fact that she also makes money
Right.
when he makes money. So it doesn't have to be him. She has a personal reason to want sugar to succeed. It's ridiculous. If I were a goat, I would be screaming about it.
Oh, quick segue.
Police on BC, British Columbia Island, responded to reports of mysterious screaming, and they find a lonely, sad goat.
It is very sad because they had just taken the goat's children away.
Oh, it's kids.
It was an unhappy scream, like in one of the Marvel Thor movies.
I was worried. Our cat got out after we got back from Thanksgiving. He just ran out the door, and he's back now. But I was worried that we would hear coyotes, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Cricket, you're not built for that."
Or wildcats. Could be a lot. But this is a story we also see over and over and over. And it just shows you how people are quick to snitch and quick to jump to conclusions.
Officials cancel cougar warning in a neighborhood after finding the animal that was loose was just a house cat.
And you may be thinking, didn't you guys already cover this? And I checked the date on this story. This is a new one.
Yeah. Happens a lot. I remember the cat in the other picture was different.
Yeah.
This is a one orange brain cell cat.
Yeah. It do be like that with the orange cats.
And the whales, a lot of news about the whales, mostly them trying to kill us by tearing down our boats. And we don't know why, but maybe this is the reason why, because they did not draw first blood.
U.S. Navy seeks to raise the allowed number of accidental whale collisions. Why? Well, it's happening more often, and we'd like to not have to report it, please. Thank you.
Don't our Navy ships have a lot of radar and detection in terms of what's underwater?
Yeah.
Seems like they could just, I don't know, go around them. Wouldn't that be a good training exercise?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
To go, wait, well, I mean, if the ships are huge, you might have not a lot of time to turn it to get away from the...
Also, what's going on with the whales that they're just like, nah, bro, you won't run me over?
What if it's
They are getting aggressive.
required watching on the Navy ship Star Trek 4 whenever they hit more than one whale a month? It's like, all right, we got to watch Star Trek 4 again. This is what's going to happen if we don't stop hitting the whales.
The first time that happens, everybody would just be like, oh, yeah, Star Trek 4, that's a good movie. But then the 50th time, they would really be trying to miss the whales. Don't make me do that again.
I'm just imagining a mess hall of like 200 sailors that are all reciting all the lines in the movie in unison. That's amazing.
And some bat news. This is just, I don't know how you're going to get through this. That's going to be the most entertaining part. But what a fascinating story about bats that we've never known up until now.
Retiree records bats in the church attic that are reproducing and helps scientists solve some mysteries of that species in terms of that.
How it happens.
So the bats have a piece of their anatomy that's really, really, really long, like as long as they are. And it has a tip which folds out and becomes this big barb. And scientists have always wondered, like, how are they making that work? Because it's physically, it's just not possible.
It's like the episode of Stargate where they brought the probe back from the moon and it didn't want to go back through the Stargate, so it impaled Richard Dean Anderson.
But it's not like that at all, because there's no impaling going on, even of the consensual kind. It turns out that the bats just lovingly wrap their appendage around their mate. And they use the flared head to pull aside a natural protection thing. I don't know even what they called it in the story. And then they just sort of like snuggle for up to 48 hours.
Fascinating.
And somehow that makes baby bats.
I feel like you would be able to see that, but I guess maybe scientists never just observed it in the wild.
So apparently this dude at the church found out he had those up there and he was like, yeah, I'm going to make a bat box and I'm going to put cameras in it. And he caught the full process. And they added him to the research paper.
Neat.
We've had a bat box in our yard for like 2 years. I don't think we've ever had a bat in it. Or if we have, I've never seen it.
If you ever do, you need to get some cameras in there.
Cameras in there for hot footage.
Yeah, only bats.
That's snuggling footage.
That'll be something for the Twitch stream.
Bats looking to snuggle in your area.
Click now. Not clickbait. All right, chat. Well, you've wasted another perfectly good week with us.
And a month.
Oh, yeah. It's December now.
It is the end of 2023. Finally, an even numbered year.
Well, hopefully nothing bad
What do you
happens.
think? It's an election year, my friend.
Oh, no.
We do not want to look forward to that.
We'll see you in the next one. Bye.